some of the prophets are mentioned in the Quran. So we don't know of all the prophets. So some people might say, what about Buddha? Do you get it? So what, we won't say like, look, Buddha, we're not going to say that he's definitely a prophet. We can't say that because he's not in the Quran, for example. But we can't deny that he was a prophet. He could have been a prophet and then his message was corrupted along the way. And therefore, you know what I'm trying to say? There was a religious group that kind of moved away from pure monotheism and so on. So the thing is, Tawheed, the idea of submission, is something which naturally resonates with people. You know, that there's a creator out there. There is a sustainer, maintainer, a power, you know, an entity, the knowledgeable one, the wise one. You know, and the prophets, all they do and all the messengers do is just tell the people to worship in that creator. As simple as that, and to do good to their fellow man. And they came with two things. They came with that message, and they also came with some miracle, some evidence to show that they were truthful. You know?
Who brought the law?
So what law are we talking about?
The law of the Quran. The law is in the Quran.
So the Quran...
What prophet, sorry?
Yeah, so obviously we believe God sent down the law, which is in the Quran. And so the long story short is God.
So was there law before the Quran?
Yeah.
Where did the law come and who did it go to?
So for example, we had the law of Moses and Jesus, which was sent to Musa and Abraham and so on. There was always a law.
Is it the same law?
For the most part, but here's what we believe, right? In the minutiae, there are abrogatable laws. So in other words, there's a law that can come and abrogate another law. Yeah? But in principle, there's some static things that will never change. So Tawheed, the idea of one God, that can never change.
Jason Raj.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like being good generally to your fellow man, that can never change. But there are some specific little minutiae details which can be abrogated. It can be changed because certain communities need this and some communities don't need this. So that kind of thing can be abrogated. There could be a change in that respect. But in terms of an overall change, no. Or in the specific, in the fundamentals, it can never be.
So we're now, the Sharia law that we're using is the laws of Musa. Is that what we're saying?
No, because for the most part, it's fair to say that, but there are some things which have been abrogated. Now, obviously, so the Jews will say we don't believe in abrogation, for example, yeah? Mm-hmm. But that can easily be disproved. Like, for example, abrogation is the idea that you have a law, and then another law comes after, and it kind of repeals that first law. So, for example, that you can, there was a time where drinking alcohol or being intoxicated was not something which was, you could do it, yeah? But then Allah said in the Quran, you can't do it, you can't do it. So there was an abrogation there, yeah? So abrogation means repeal. So the other one goes. Now, in regards to the Jews, there's a clear story, which we all agree on, that shows that the Jews believe in abrogation. Do you know what story that is? You know when Abraham got his son in the Old Testament thing, it's Isaac, and he was about to kill his son, and the night was replaced with a sheep thing, yeah? So if it was no abrogation, because there was an initial command, and the command is a law. So the initial command was to sacrifice the son. But that command was repealed by the second command, which was not to sacrifice him, because there's going to be some other sacrifice that you put in his place. So even within prophets, you can see that there's movement from law to law, and that's an abrogation.
For me, I don't know about Abraham, but before Abraham, was there a law sent to other people before Abraham?
Yeah, so Noah came before Abraham, for example. There was a law sent to him, and he was told to be good to his people, to his community, you know, to keep, and the main thing that they always sent to do is to keep away from the idols, the shirk, the association of God, trying to make something level with God. Because when you try and make something level with God, that's when you commit shirk, polytheism. And that's what will, and the prophets would say, lead you to the path of hellfire.
But I don't see that in Africa, though. I don't see that happening in Africa.
In Africa?
Where I come from, I don't see no idol worship in Africa.
There's idol worship everywhere, to be honest. Like, Africa's a big continent, and it's like, I don't know how many people don't run it.
When you say idol worship, like, I know about giving reverence, I don't know about idol worship.
Yeah, okay, but maybe it's not a thing. Yeah, I agree. The African, for us, we believe that the African people were much more receptive than, for example, from our perspective, from a historical angle, the Europeans, in terms of accepting the law. That's why when Islam spread to West Africa, it was much more an easy reception and accommodation of the religion. They accepted Tawheed quite easily. There was some. Pardon?
I beg to differ as well.
Oh, yes, it's something.
I want to ask you a question.
Tawheed went the other way.
You see, with the Prophet, peace be upon him, his parents, were they idol worshippers?
Yeah, so
Classed as idol worshippers? Would
so
you say?
according to one hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet's father, he was some guy came to the Prophet, and he asked him, "Where's your dad?" He said, "My dad and your dad are in hellfire." So according to that narration, some say that okay, he was an idol worshipper. There's some discussion about it.
What was Muhammad's dad's name?
Abdullah.
What does Abdullah mean?
He was a slave of Allah.
So, you see the contradictory
Go on.
idea and term in the sense of he is supposedly from the Quraysh. The
Yeah.
Quraysh are idol worshippers, it seems, right? And he's going to be called
Abdullah.
Abdullah,
Yeah.
slave or servant of Allah.
Yeah, but a lot of people are called something, but they do something else, innit? But
That doesn't make sense.
How is he the son of Allah?
Unless,
by the way, there's some Muslims that argue on that line. So some say, okay, we have to do ta'wil of this hadith and so on. But
No, but I was stick with the name. If his dad's name is Abdullah,
yeah,
slave of Allah, this was before Muhammad was born.
right?
yeah.
Who was worshipping Allah before Muhammad?
So,
And the father doesn't name himself, does he? His father named him.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, so a lot of people worship God. Abraham, Moses, Jesus, the communities. A lot of people work. So we don't believe Islam started with Prophet Muhammad. We believe Islam started with the first man.
Okay.
Because Islam means submission to God. So Muhammad came, the Quran says, "لَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ مِّن رُسُلِهِ." We don't distinguish at all between the different prophets.
Now, is that modern Arabic, or is that classical?
Classical Arabic.
That's in the ancient Arabic.
Yeah, that's the Quran.
With no vowels, no?
Yeah.
No vowels.
Yeah, that's how it
Your
was.
Quran has no vowels.
What, my Quran?
Your Quran has no vowels. Is that what you're saying?
No vowels, no diacritical marks.
Yeah, no diacritical marks, none of that.
The one that I memorize or the one that I read?
The one that you read.
The one I read has diacritical marks.
Right. And that is new.
It came
That's
about
not-
in the 3rd century.
Right. That's
Came
not
about.
original. The original has no diacritical
Yeah,
marks.
but do you know, like for example, a lot of people don't understand how this works. So, like for example, your cap says what is it, diamond, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So I can read that, you can read that, he can read that. But say for example, we bring someone who doesn't know the English language to read this cap, which is diamond, yeah? They might find it actually quite difficult to read it because they say, why is it I and A creates this I diamond sound, yeah? There's something in the English language called the schwa, which is a very common, probably the most common vowel sound that you can make. And when new learners learn a new language, they have to learn English with what is referred to as like the learner science. So that's why you have the Cambridge Learner Dictionary, yeah? So here the point is that for me and you, we don't need no diacritical marks when we're reading the English language. But for a new learner of the language, they need the diacritical marks. The same way, in the early communities, the Arabs, when they read the Quran, they did not require the diacritical marks because those diacritical marks, it's neither there, here nor there for me. If I saw the diacritical, the signs on the word diamond, I don't need it.
Is that because the language was originally oral?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it would make more sense.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if to get the marks at a certain point, remember,
Yeah.
in the beginning it had no vowels. You
One
understand?
language, everyone knew what it
But
was.
we know why it had no vowels because
People
they
knew.
spoke it.
Yeah, yeah.
They spoke it.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
mouth
So
to ear.
people knew it.
Right.
So the thing is, the reason why in the 3rd century AH, people said, okay, well, let's move it, let's put the diacritical marks, is because Islam started spreading rapidly around the world. So obviously now you had these new learners coming into the Arabic language. They needed the stabilizers, the scaffolding, the linguistic scaffolding. So those diacritical marks aim to serve a purpose, which in this case was a linguistic purpose of trying to facilitate the language for those people.
Right. Now, once you put diacritical marks,
Yeah.
which we're saying are vowels or masculine and feminine, right?
Now that would be that's within the language. Like you don't need the marks for that.
Oh, so you don't need the marks for
For
that.
the masculine and feminine. Yeah.
Right. So the masculine and feminine is already identified in the word.
In the word, yeah.
Right. So then when you add vowels or when you add things, does it change the sound of the word?
The thing is, like in the Arabic language, there's something called i'rab, which is something which is in Arabic and Hebrew and other Semitic languages, but it's not actually in English. But the idea is that every third, like the last letter of the word, has either one of 4 different signs. Now, an Arab would know how to recognize those signs quite easy, because they know what you call the i'rab, the grammatical forms. But someone who's learning the Arabic, they might not know how to recognize or reconcile these marks. So for that, which changes the meaning and the forms, you need to know. Yeah, you need to know.
You
And
heard
so
it.
helps.
Change the meaning and the form. So it does change
Yeah.
when you add vowels. That's plain and simple. Well,
Yeah,
once
well,
you put
it
the
depends on-
diacritical marks,
depends on where you put the
change
marks.
the language.
It depends on where you put the marks.
You change the meanings of the word.
Yeah.
There's more than one meaning for the word.
Well, obviously, it completely changes it in some respects.
No, the diacritical marks, if, for example, we put them in a certain way, because you know how the Quran was revealed? It was revealed with three different things. Then that's one of the things about the Quran, it's a preserved book. So it was revealed with you had number one, you had the written form. And you're right to say in the beginning there
No,
was no...
number one was the oral.
All right, fine. But
Right.
I'm not putting that in order. But yeah, you can say
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You can
Number
say-
one is
you can
oral,
say,
yes.
number one is
Yeah,
oral.
cool.
Yeah. Number two, you can say the written form. Yeah. And number three, you had the Arabic language. So this triangulated format ensures that the meanings and the violations and the sounds, what you say, is always going to be said the way it should be said or the way the Prophet said it. So it wasn't just, for example, like let's go back to your cap. Yeah. I know it's just one word, but say for example, you teach your son and 10 other students, this word, you say it like this.
Yeah.
You give him your cap or you give him that word diamond, and now he knows not only he's got the physical written diamond where it says diamond, but he can say the word diamond. He's been taught to say the word diamond, and all of your friends, or his friends, let's say 10 other friends, know how to say diamond. Now, so there's an oral aspect where you've been tested and taught how to say it.
Right.
There's a written aspect, and there's also, you could say, a linguistic aspect, because they might be native to the English language anyway. They might know how to say diamond anyway. So these three things there ensure that the meanings are going to be preserved until after generations.
So linguistically, which is obviously my expertise, I study linguistics.
Okay, nice.
The whole point is that when we go to the root, like say Arabic,
Yeah.
then we either go to the Syriac, where it came from, or you could say Aramic, because the Aramic is the original Hebrew, and then from the Hebrew you get the Arabic. So we can see what? You don't agree?
Yeah, because what it is like from what...
Huh? Shalom. Shalom. Shalom.
Are dialects from Arabic?
Shalom.
Well, let's
Shalom
bring
or
it-
salam? Same word.
both are similar.
Just continue with Mohammed Hijab.
And Hebrew is not even Hebrew.
It's neither
We-
here nor there. It's a
Aramic
side point.
is the real language. Yeah? That Hebrew, yeah, that Arabic is translated from. Get that right. It's translated from, yeah? I'm telling you, that is translated from, yeah, is German and Yiddish, yeah, to give you Arabic. I mean, to give you Hebrew. You understand? So you have to know the root of what you're talking about. So when we talk about Hebrew, yeah, you're actually speaking Yiddish. Unless you're speaking Aramic or Shuric, you get me, or Syriac, you're not speaking
I think
the
that-
ancient
I
texts
think
or
there's
the
a bit of a
languages of the ancient
There's
texts.
a bit of confusion there. I think I'll tell you why. There's language. You're right to say there's language families, isn't it? So you have the Semitic language families, Syriac, obviously Aramaic,
Arabic,
and Hebrew and Arabic, and so on, and other languages. Yeah. Now, from what I've read, linguists on that particular point differ as to what what preceded what.
Right.
One of the theories is that there was something called the Lugha Simawiyya al-Umm, which is the mother Semitic language, and of that there were derivations of different languages. Of them is Arabic, Hebrew, Aramaic, and so on. Some say no, Arabic preceded Hebrew, and some say no, Hebrew preceded Arabic. It's all a conversation, right? That linguists have, and I'm sure, you know what I'm saying, you've done some research on
Well,
that yourself.
Israelites before Muslims.
No, but that's different to saying, are there Israelites before Arabs?
Yeah, it makes sense to say that. Are there? Or to ask the question.
We say that basically from the biblical narrative, Abraham had two sons, right?
Right.
So obviously, if you had two sons, Isaac and Isaac and Ishmael existed pretty much at the same time. So they went to two different parts of the earth, and obviously the people of so Ismail himself.
Yes.
There's a discussion among linguists: is Ismail an Arabic word?
Right.
Or is it not an Arabic word? And the reason why there's a discussion is 'cause if he was the father of the Arabs, then did Arab result as a result of him speaking it, or his progeny speaking it?
But then you also got one problem. If I live somewhere and I go somewhere, I still speak my language.
Yeah. Say again?
I'm still speaking my language.
Yeah.
I don't just I'm just going of a new lineage, and then give me a new language. I'll still be speaking the same language I was speaking
Of my forefathers,
my forefathers.
Yeah.
grandfather.
Yeah.
So
So
what
that-
language is Ishmael speaking?
So that's the question. That's a really good question. In fact, that's an excellent question. 'Cause what happened was obviously Abraham. There's almost no doubt that he didn't speak Arabic, yeah, because he lived in the Mesopotamian Empire. The language was not Arabic. So that language that he taught his son when he was communicating with his son, he didn't communicate in Arabic. It's a very difficult case to make. Whatever he communicated with his son, and then his son went on to, let's say, for example, the Arabian Peninsula or the areas of the Arabs. The language that was then developed as a result of that communication, what was it? Whatever we know is that it then became Arabic, but when it became Arabic in the conventional sense and the forms change and so on, that's a question of linguistics, and we can't really put our finger on a point in time where we say Ismail started speaking Arabic at this time, or his progeny started speaking Arabic at that time. The same thing could be said about Hebrew, but it's a very complex kind of conversation, I think, that is difficult to be definitive about.
I think Hebrew is a people, so that's different. Hebrew is not a language, it's a people.
It's not even a it's not even a people. It's just a description.
Traditional people, yeah.
Unless you know, like you speak the language of the Arcadians of that time, then you will know that the word Hebrew is to travel, to cross over, to cross two rivers.
So what about
especially the
that
Tigris
language of the Old
Euphrates.
Testament? What would you refer to it as?
The language of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Well, originally, that was Aramic or Aramaic, as they say. The New Testament is
Whatever you wanna call
Aramaic
it.
and, well, mainly Greek.
Whatever that language is called, whatever you want to call it, that language is a byproduct of what is you could say a sub-compartment of the language of Abraham. So whatever the language of Abraham was, his sons developed that language, which is commonly referred to as Hebrew. You can call it whatever you want, but which is the language of the Old Testament. And then you had the sister language, one of the sister languages of that language, which is Arabic.
Right.
So that's why you'll find there's a lot of continuity between the two languages, like Salam and Shalom, for example,
that's
like
right,
you were
that's
mentioning,
right.
right? But there's also like a Nevi and Nebi and so on. And obviously the letters are very much similar, if not very much. There's a lot of continuity before the like Alif and Alif, and Mem and Mim and Mem, Dalit and Dal, and so on.
I'll go back to the Quran thing. So who decided to put the Quran in book form? Do you know?
So that's a very beautiful question. So the Quran itself says, "Inna alayna jam'ahu wa Qur'an." That to us, i.e. God is speaking now, is its composition, yeah, i.e. its composition, yeah, and its recitation. So with this and the fact that the Quran refers to itself as kitab itself, which means book, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, it was understood by the early generation that the Quran is one book. It should be compiled in one book form. So when did that originally happen? Obviously at the time of the Prophet Muhammad himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was written, yeah? It wasn't compiled and put into book format until Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who immediately preceded him. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he put it into, he told Zayd and others, like he made a council to put it into book form. And in that process of putting it into book form, he got the Sahaba, some of the Sahabas that were the Qurra, which were the reciters and memorizers of the Quran, to come together and to agree that this is exactly how we heard it from the Prophet. So when they put it in that order and when they wrote it all down, that was an agreement among them that, okay, this was how we heard it from the Prophet.
So that book, which they compiled straight after the Prophet died,
Yes.
Abu Bakr, is still available now.
Yes,
Where
because there was a second council. Because what happened was when Islam spread at the time of Uthman and Affan, there was a second council that happened because people started writing their own books. So you had the standardized Quranic mushaf of Zayd, yeah, of Abu Bakr's time. And then after that, when there was a proliferation of the Islamic Empire and power, so certain people from different non-Arab tribes, obviously their language skills were not as good, so they started writing the Quran, and they started writing it with mistakes. Now the issue was, if you write the Quran with mistakes, and people further generations get a hold of that book, they could treat it potentially as the actual word of God. So what Uthman Affan did, he said, bring all those books together and burn them. We don't want any mistake in the book of God.
When did it happen? How long after the Prophet did that happen?
So Uthman Affan, he was around 30 years after the Prophet Muhammad. So about 25 years to 30 years after the Prophet Muhammad.
So,
Yes.
so now the Quran of Abu Bakr,
Two years after. So right after the Prophet Muhammad.
that's still available.
Yeah. So the one of Abu Bakr is that one.
That was
is-
under the bed.
Yeah, under the bed of Hafsa. Yes. So
The
what happened
material
was.
that was used
Pardon?
Because that is the one who.
Yeah. So it was gathered, and they just made sure that everything corresponded to that particular reading at the time of Uthman 25 years later. So, and that's why you'll find even now the Sana'a manuscript of the Yemeni manuscript is actually carbon dated. So not only do we have the
I don't believe in carbon dating. So.
yeah, but they got that as well. I don't believe in it as well either. We don't use it as a method of preservation, but it's there. It's carbon dated to 651.
Yeah, what I'm saying. So the Quran which Abu Bakr compiled, did it have the vowel marks in it?
No. Those ones that have vowel marks in it. So as we said, the vowel marks came about 100 years after, maybe more.
And who decided to put the vowel marks in?
I actually believe it was, there was two things that were done. Al-Hajjaj Yusuf al-Thaqafi. So Al-Hajjaj Yusuf al-Thaqafi, he did what he tajdeed of the Quran to 30 juz. This guy was like a tyrant, yeah? But he decided that the Quran is going to be like, okay, this is how we're going to read it, like into 30 juz or divide it into 30 juz, but it was the same content. And he also put the vowelation marks because Islam started spreading too much into different areas. So he started to put those kind of like linguistic stabilizers for the people to be able to read it.
But the Rasul was the same.
The Rasul was the same, so the font and the writing and all that kind of stuff was the same.
Do you know what's Rasul? You don't know maybe what's Rasul?
No.
Sorry, the Rasul is the
Is that why you get like the Duru Quran, the Walsh Quran, and the House Quran?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the one thing which keeps you back as well.
Yeah.
The honor and king verse. Surah. So where I'm the honor, he's the honor of the day, the king of the day.
Yeah.
Which word was revealed to Muhammad?
Both. So honor and king were both revealed to Muhammad, yeah? So what we have is we have 10 Qurra. Qurra are the reciters of the Quran, yeah? Now them 10 Qurra were the ones who testified with chains of narration which were mass transmitted up to the Prophet Muhammad that this is the way that they heard it. And they had the written form, the written book, in order to read it like that. Now, the word Malik in Arabic is spelled Mim, Alif, Lam, Kaf. Yeah, so it's 4 letters. Now the thing is, the way it's actually written in the Mus'haf, in the Quran, is Mim, Lam, Kaf, with what you call an Alif Khanjariya, which means that it's the lexical item is facilitative of the two readings. And it was intentionally made to facilitate as much of the readings as possible, because obviously we know that the Quran on selective words have two ways in which you can recite it.
So is that word masculine or feminine?
Masculine. Malik is masculine.
Malik
Yes, masculine.
is masculine.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think you
Malika
need
is
to check.
feminine. Malika is a
Yeah,
feminine.
Malika
so
is feminine, but
it's
Malik
masculine,
is
yes.
masculine.
Both.
Help us.
But
No,
both-
there's
both
only
are
one,
masculine.
innit?
Malik
speak
and Malik
Arabic?
is both.
There's only one, innit?
What is the sign for
So
feminism?
now
No,
there's,
let him
there's,
ask us.
you're saying Malik.
He's not asking it like a. He's
No,
not,
yeah,
he's
saying
you're
it's
asking
masculine,
Malik.
it's feminine.
You say Malik and Malika is two different words, yeah?
Yeah, but that's not the two that we're talking about. We're talking
It's
about Malik
feminine,
and Malik.
masculine and
Yeah,
feminine.
so I'm saying, so you're saying that Malik and Malika is the masculine.
So
and the feminine.
Malika is the feminine version of Malik, sort of Malik.
Right.
And Malika is the feminine version of Malik.
So what's most written? Is it Malika or Malik?
So there's only one thing that's written, either Malik or Malik. There's no feminine version of that. That's written.
So that's what I'm saying.
It's a feminine
It's-
word then.
It's a feminine word.
no,
then.
no, it's masculine.
That's not
There's
what I've
no-
been told by
there's no-
scholars.
there's no term marbuta.
Sorry.
So you're saying it's been made masculine?
No, it's a feminine.
What,
The
Malik?
principle in it is feminine. It's not.
What,
they do-
Malik? So
Yeah.
why is there no term marbuta then?
That's why there's vowels in there. You get what I'm saying?
No,
The
but if it was...
the
if-
vowels are not only for linguistic, yeah. It also gives masculine and feminine.
No,
This
no.
is what I'm saying. There's not two different words.
No,
I
because-
agree with you. Do you get what I'm saying?
There's two kinds of masculine word and feminine word. There's something called a ta'nith al-asli and ta'nith al-majazi. So there's two kinds of masculinity and femininity in the Arabic language. Yeah, one of them is what has to be identified by what you call the ta at the end of it, which is actually a ha. So it's literally one letter like that. Yeah, and the other one is a word in its essence which is treated as if it's a feminine word. Like for example, the word shams.
I know, but we think we're going too far here.
But that's like saying I agree. That's like saying Allah and Alat.
I know.
Right? So Alat is the female, yes? Principle.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So I can agree with that.
Yeah, we're all going into text, but when the Prophet got the Quran, it was recitation in it. It wasn't written, he was
No
saying it out.
text, yeah.
So there was nothing saying, okay, write it like this. He wasn't saying write it like this, he was just saying it. So
Yes.
what word did he say?
Malik and Malik.
No, he could have said one. He had to say one word.
No, he didn't say what, because there was not one occasion where he was reciting the Quran. So there was, if you recite the Quran 10 different occasions and he said the word Malik 5 times and Malik 5 times, then both of them are the word of God.
What word was revealed to him though?
Both.
Because the verse was revealed twice.
The same verse was revealed more than, like, he was recited 100 times,
No.
1,000 times, 1,000,000 times.
How many times was the verse revealed?
Well, one time.
So one time they said one word was
But
said.
but when the angel came, because there's a hadith on this actually, there's a hadith that says that Prophet Muhammad is Bukhari, right? Prophet Muhammad asked the angel to make the Quran as facilitative as possible for as many tribes as possible.
I know, I'm not getting on that, but I just want to get down to the
Yeah.
word.
So
was
that
revealed.
word was revealed, obviously, that particular verse, that one verse was revealed in 2 different forms, Malik and Malik.
So it was revealed twice.
Yeah, in essence, that word, there was 2 revelations. One with the word Malik and the other one with the word Malik.
I've got delay for this two revelations.
Yeah, because in the Bukhari, it says that he asked the angel to reveal it in as many facilitative forms as possible, and the angel basically replied to him that he will do that. So the dalil is that he asked God to do it, and God responded to his dua, his supplication.
So God didn't know that the people would know. Muhammad asked God to do it.
But lots of things that God knows. God knows everything, right? God knows all things. But the Prophet Muhammad's remit was to make dua and ask for those things, and then God would grant those things afterwards.